What's your name?
Reporting from inside the police killings.
A psychopath is on the loose, and he is killing only police officers.
8 more coppers to kill. Bye.
His identity remains a mystery until he oversteps his boundaries and kills this agent's best friend.
What's the problem?
Now the chase is on. Will the agent get his revenge, or will the psychopath complete his mission?
Something on your mind, Barry?
Well, I guess I'll see you another day.
Welcome back to Favorite Recap. Subscribe to the channel and tell us what you think about this movie.
I've got a name.
Name.
It's Blitz, as in Blitzkrieg.
The film begins as we see Tom, who is a detective, sleeping on his couch. He was soon startled awake by a sound down the street, and when he takes a look out his window, he spots some thieves attempting to break into a car. So, he stepped outside and confronted the thieves. He warns them to leave, but they ignore him, and this eventually leads to a violent fight. Tom beats them up badly, and then threatens that if he ever sees them again, he'll kill them. The next morning, the incident takes an unexpected turn. News spreads like wildfire, accusing Brant of severely beating innocent young men. The media starts to paint Brant as a violent rogue, and the backlash affects not only him, but his entire department. Concerned about the reputational damage, Brant's superiors send him to a therapist for counseling. However, Brant's rebellion is well noticeable as he smokes in front of the therapist and even issues threats instead of engaging in dialogue. Frustrated at the end of the session, Brant returns to the station, where a young officer, Elizabeth Falls, meets him. She tells him about her undercover work, which involved infiltrating a drug cartel, during which she had to use drugs to maintain her cover. Although she eventually entered rehab after the operation, she had been deeply affected, and it reflected in her failure to pass the sergeant's exam, resulting in her demotion to constable. Brant is sincerely concerned for her as he tries to console her, but Elizabeth remains visibly downcast. Moments later, Brant visits Chief Inspector Bruce Roberts, a colleague who is struggling to cope with the recent death of his wife. At the morgue, Bruce breaks down in anguish. So, in order to help him cope, Brant takes him to a local bar, where he offers companionship, and their light-hearted banter lifts Bruce's spirits. Then the movie abruptly shifts to a scene where we see a female police officer walking along a dimly lit street. Suddenly, a hooded figure steps in front of her and opens fire, killing her instantly. The police department is once more rocked by the tragedy, and Brant rushes to the crime scene. When asked if Bruce will be involved in the case, Brant explains that Bruce is still too consumed by grief to return to work. So, to fill the void, the department appoints a temporary inspector, Porter Nash, to oversee the investigation. However, Porter's arrival at the department is met with hostility. The other officers are reluctant to work under him due to the rumors about his sexuality. However, their superior officer insists they cooperate with him. Surprisingly, Porter finds an unexpected ally in Brant, who seems indifferent about the concerns of others. Days later, Elizabeth receives a visit from Metal, a young gang member and a friend during her undercover days. He had come to ask for her help. Metal tells Elizabeth that he suspects his gang may have killed someone, and he is terrified about it. Elizabeth agrees to look into it, but warns this will be her final favor for him. She advises him to leave the city if the victim is dead, or abandon the gang if the man survives. In her quest to find assistance, Elizabeth approaches Brant, who recommends she consult Detective Inspector Craig Stokes. When the two eventually meet, Craig agrees to help, but only on the condition that Elizabeth goes on a date with him, a demand she reluctantly considers. Meanwhile, Dunlop, a reporter, receives a chilling call from a man named Barry Weiss, who claims that he was responsible for the officer's murder. Barry warns that his killing spree isn't over, and that he plans to target more officers. As he speaks, he carries out another shooting, killing another officer. Barry boasts about having 8 more names on his list before ending the call. The news quickly spreads around town, sparking panic and urgency within the police department. In the meantime, Porter meets with Brant, and he questions whether Brant's infamous reputation agrees with the man he truly is. However, their conversation reveals Porter's deep understanding of Brant's character, which once more gives both a sense of mutual respect. Few days later, tension escalates yet again when another officer is gunned down. Now deeply troubled, the team shifts into overdrive, rounding up known criminals and activating their network of informants. Brant eventually meets with Radner, a supposed informant. He had planned on getting paid in exchange for information. However, Brant threatens him and forces him to give the information. So he directs him and Porter to Barry Weiss. Radner reveals that Barry recently bragged about setting a police dog on fire for practice, and he thinks that there is a deeply disturbed individual behind the killings. Brant and Porter visit Barry's apartment, hoping to find evidence linking him to the murders. However, when Barry answers the door, his calm demeanor hides the predator within him. Despite a moment of hesitation upon seeing the officers, Barry quickly regains his composure. After their search, Brant eventually recognizes Barry as someone he had fought and humiliated in a pool hall over a year ago, and he briefly mocks him for the events before leaving with Porter. A little concerned about the visit, Barry immediately gathers incriminating belongings from his flat and sets off to hide them. Unknown to him, Radner secretly follows him and notes the location where Barry stashes his possessions. Radner, who is driven by a mix of loyalty and personal gain, decides to investigate further. That was when he discovers an abandoned car containing trophies Barry has kept from his victims. Meanwhile, Bruce, the grieving inspector, goes to a liquor store for yet another bottle to calm himself. However, as he stands in the store, he has a moment of clarity and he ultimately resolves to return to work and rebuild his life. Reporting back to the station, Bruce goes back to his duties, very much unaware that he is being stalked by Barry, who has already marked him as his next target. Barry follows Bruce to his home, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Soon, a knock is heard on Bruce's door, and as the unsuspecting Bruce opens the door, Barry attacks. Although Bruce fights back valiantly, even grabbing a hammer to defend himself, Barry overpowers him. And seizing the hammer, Barry delivers a fatal barrage of blows. With Bruce dead, Barry calmly sits like a psychopath in the house and watches television. Just before leaving, he steals Bruce's police uniform and then sets the room on fire to hide evidence. Later on, Barry calls Dunlop again, proudly announcing his third kill and demanding the media nickname him Blitz. He emphasizes his desire to be infamous and promises more bloodshed if his name isn't in the headlines. Brant is devastated upon learning about Bruce's death, as the two had shared a close bond. While he tries to recover from the loss, we see that Radner has continued his surveillance of Barry. He observes Barry moving items into a car and decides to capitalize on this knowledge. He immediately calls the same reporter Barry had spoken to and proposes a deal: $50,000 in exchange for the location of the killer's stash and incriminating evidence. Dunlop, who is intrigued by the potential media exclusive, agrees to meet Radner at a parking lot. There, Radner reveals the hidden stash in Barry's car, including Bruce's uniform. Though initially skeptical, the reporter starts to believe Radner's claims. However, as soon as they leave the car, Barry, who has been monitoring the situation from the shadows, retrieves his belongings from the car and takes them somewhere else. In the meantime, Elizabeth goes on a date with Detective Craig Stokes, and she asks for updates on the man injured by mental scan. Craig assures her the man is alive and that he hasn't revealed any information about his attackers. Elizabeth, feeling indebted, asks Craig how she can repay him, to which he casually suggests meeting for drinks the next evening. Meanwhile, Dunlop takes Radner to a bar to pay him the agreed amount. After handing over the money, the reporter presses Radner for the name of the killer. But Radner promises to reveal the name as soon as he confirms the prize money. So, he excuses himself to use the restroom to count the money. Unfortunately for Radner, Barry has followed them to the bar and he corners him in the restroom. Terrified, Radner pleads for his life, insisting he hasn't exposed Barry's identity yet. But Barry, never showing mercy, brutally kills Radner and escapes with the $50,000. The reporter, now alarmed, alerts the police about Barry's stash. However, when Brant and Porter arrive at the car, they find it empty, with Barry having removed all evidence. Brant and his team begin piecing together a chilling pattern. All of Blitz's victims have been police officers who had previously arrested Barry. This revelation sets off alarm bells, as Elizabeth emerges as the likely next target. With the stakes higher than ever, Brant and Porter now face a race against time to stop the deranged killer before he gets to his next target. In the meantime, after returning from her date with Stokes, Elizabeth is ambushed at her home by Barry. Just as he closes in for the kill, Metal suddenly intervenes. Despite his brave efforts, Barry kills Metal during their struggle. However, before Barry can harm Elizabeth further, the police arrive, forcing him to escape. After the incident, Craig and Porter decide to release Barry's photo to the media in an effort to draw him out. The strategy works as a man at a bar recognized him, and the information sends Craig and the team after him. However, Barry escaped through the window of his room and Craig gave chase. Just as he closed in, Porter and the other officers intervened before the furious Craig could get to Barry. He is then taken to the police station. However, without solid evidence to hold him, the police are compelled to release Barry after 48 hours of fruitless interrogation. Frustrated, Craig and Porter craft a new plan to bait Barry, knowing that his ego and desire for revenge against Craig will make him want to act again. Meanwhile, the events of the past weeks made Elizabeth and Stokes grow close, and he takes care of her as she recovers at home. As Craig predicted, Barry disguises himself in Chief Inspector Bruce's uniform and infiltrates Bruce's funeral. During the service, Craig slips away, with Barry following closely. He then leads Barry to the rooftop of a parking garage, where the tables turn. Porter had secretly switched places with Craig during the pursuit. Suddenly, the real Craig ambushes Barry, disarms him, and delivers a brutal beating. Very much aware that legal conviction is unlikely for Barry, Craig devises a dark plan. They will frame Barry's death to look like another of Blitz's murders. So, using Barry's own weapon, Craig shoots him dead. At the end, Porter disposes of the evidence, and Craig tells him that he suspects that the mystery of this particular death will remain unsolved for life. At the end of the movie, we see Craig unleash police dogs on Dunlop, the reporter, as punishment for his damaging coverage of the department. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more movie recaps. Also leave a comment and tell us what you love about this movie. Thanks for watching.